In 1961, three amateur geologists found a modern spark plug inside a 500,000-year-old rock. Read that sentence again. A piece of 20th century technology, sealed in stone from a time before our species existed. This is the Coso artifact. On February 13th, Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mikesell were searching for geodes in the mountains of California. They ran a small gift shop and were looking for interesting minerals to sell. They found a promising specimen, heavy and crusted with fossil shells. Back at their workshop, Mike Mikesell prepared to cut it open. His diamond-tipped saw blade, designed to slice through solid rock, shattered. The rock was harder than it looked. When they finally forced it open, they did not find the beautiful crystals of a geode. They found something else, something impossible. Inside was a perfectly circular core of white porcelain. In the center, a 2-millimeter shaft of bright metal. It looked manufactured. It looked familiar. They took it to a geologist who examined it. The rock was a concretion, and the fossils attached to its surface dated it to at least 500,000 years old. And here is where the story gets strange. They had the object X-rayed. The image it produced is the only piece of hard evidence that survives today. You are looking at it now. The X-ray revealed a metal pin, a porcelain insulator, and at the top, a tiny, perfect helix. A spring. It was, component for component, a spark plug. Think about what that means. Spark plugs were invented in the late 1800s. The most similar model to the Coso artifact was a champion plug from the 1920s. But the experts dated the rock encasing it to 500,000 years. Both facts cannot be true. One of them has to be wrong. The story was published in a local paper, then picked up by national magazines. For a moment, the world was fascinated. Some claimed it as proof that the geologic timescale was wrong. Others saw evidence of ancient astronauts. The official story is that the finders kept it. Wallace Lane reportedly kept it in his home until he died. But then, it vanished. No museum has it. No university is studying it. The original X-rays are gone. All that is left are photos and copies of that one image. Why does an object that could rewrite human history simply disappear? Unless the official story is not the whole story. The evidence leaves you with two possibilities, and only two. Either our entire understanding of geology, the very timeline of our planet, is wrong, or someone was driving cars through California 500,000 years before the first human ever walked the earth. "500,000 years ago" sounds absurd. But what if the other possibility is true? What if our understanding of Earth's deep history is fundamentally flawed? This is not a new question. For centuries, scientists and adventurers have grappled with anomalies carved into the very rock beneath our feet. Think about what that truly means. The Earth itself, a silent witness, holds secrets that challenge everything we believe about time and civilization. You see, the Coso artifact is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. It's a puzzle that begins not in a workshop, but in the vast, ancient oceans. Take a journey back to the year 1860. A geologist named Jules Gosselet was meticulously mapping the coal seams of northern France. He discovered a strange object embedded deep within a block of Carboniferous coal. This wasn't just a fossil, it was a perfectly spherical metal ball, about 1.5 inches in diameter. Gosselet, a respected academic, documented his find with precision. The coal layer was dated to over 300 million years old, a sphere of metal, millions of years before any known human civilization. This data was published in the Bulletin de la Société Géologique de France. No one publicly questioned his integrity. How could a manufactured object exist so far back in time? The official scientific explanation at the time offered no answers. It simply became an anomaly. And here's where it gets interesting. Gosselet's find was not unique. In 1885, a similar discovery was made in a coal mine in Austria. Miners at the Schondorf Iron Foundry unearthed a small, cube-shaped metallic object. It measured 2.6 inches on each side. Two distinct grooves ran around its center. The coal it came from was also Carboniferous, hundreds of millions of years old. The object was so unusual that it was displayed in the Salzburg Museum. Dr. Adolf Gerlt, a prominent geologist, examined it. He concluded it was of meteoric origin. But meteorites do not typically have perfectly parallel grooves, and they are rarely cube-shaped. This specific detail, the geometric precision, was largely ignored in the official reports. It didn't fit the narrative. You might think these are isolated incidents, coincidences, but the stone record keeps speaking. Consider the story of the Dorchester pot. In 1851, workers blasting rock near Dorchester, Massachusetts, uncovered a metallic pot. It was bell-shaped, about 4.5 inches high. The material was an unfamiliar alloy of zinc and silver, and it was found 15 feet below the surface, encased in solid conglomerate rock. The rock itself was dated to hundreds of millions of years old. The pot featured intricate floral designs. It looked to all observers like a finely crafted artifact. This find was reported in Scientific American on June 5, 1852. The article described it as a perfectly formed. Think about what that means. A finely crafted artifact, found deep within rock dated to hundreds of millions of years old. This is not a rough, natural formation. This is intelligent design. But whose intelligence? And when? The official explanation for the Dorchester pot, the metal sphere in France, the cube in Austria, and even the Coso artifact often defaults to natural geological processes. They say these are concretions, or iron pyrite nodules, or even meteorites. But look at the details. A spark plug, a perfectly spherical metal ball, a cube with parallel grooves. These are not random shapes. These are objects that speak of purpose. You might be asking yourself, how could modern science dismiss such clear evidence? Because these objects shatter our timeline. They force us to reconsider everything we know about civilization, and that is a very uncomfortable truth for many. Consider the arguments against these findings. Often, the artifacts simply vanish, like the Coso artifact, or they are reclassified. The cube from Austria, initially displayed as a mystery, was later explained away as a natural formation. Despite its precise angles, despite its manufactured appearance. This is how inconvenient truths are handled. They are either hidden or redefined. This pattern of dismissal is not accidental. It is a deliberate suppression of data that challenges the prevailing paradigm. The scientific community, for all its pursuit of truth, can be incredibly resistant to change, especially when that change means admitting a fundamental error. Think about the sheer scale of the deception. Not just one object, but multiple across continents. Each one suggesting a history far older, far more complex than our textbooks allow. And here's where it gets interesting. These aren't the only examples. There are more, many more. In 1844, Scottish quarry workers discovered a gold thread embedded in solid rock, 8 feet below the surface. This rock was of the old red sandstone period, hundreds of millions of years old. A gold thread. Not a natural deposit, a manufactured fiber. How do you explain that with geology? You cannot. In 1851, in Illinois, miners found a copper coin, perfectly round, with crude lettering, 125 feet below ground. The coal seam it was in dated back 200 to 300 million years. A coin from a civilization we know nothing about. What do you think happened? The official reports often focus on the difficulty of dating the rock, or the possibility of contamination. But the deeper you go, the more absurd these explanations become. Imagine the force required to embed a metallic object 125 feet deep in solid coal. The pressure, the heat. It speaks of catastrophic events, or an incredibly long period of deliberate burial. The fact is, these objects exist. They have been documented by credible individuals, geologists, scientists, miners. Their testimonies are dismissed. Their finds are ignored. Why? Because the implications are too vast. They suggest that before our recorded history, before the dinosaurs, there were beings capable of intricate craftsmanship. Beings who left their mark, not in fragile ruins, but in the very bedrock of our planet. What if our entire understanding of human evolution is flawed? What if we are not the first, or even the second, advanced civilization to grace this Earth? This is the question these artifacts force us to confront. And it's a question that frightens many. It challenges our sense of uniqueness, our place at the top of the evolutionary ladder. So, what happens to those who dare to study these anomalies? Often, their careers suffer. Their funding dries up. The pressure to conform is immense. It's easier to ignore the impossible artifact than to rewrite history. But the rocks do not lie. They hold secrets. And sometimes, you just have to listen very carefully to hear their ancient whispers. The Coso artifact, the metal sphere, the cube, the Dorchester pot, the gold thread, the coin. These are not anomalies. They are messages. Messages from a time before time. And they are waiting for you to decipher them. What if what they reveal changes everything? Changes everything. The idea that these artifacts could rewrite history is not just an academic debate. It carries a profound human cost. Think about the careers derailed, the reputations destroyed. This is not some abstract theory. It affects real people. Take Professor Alexander Koltepin, a Russian geologist. In 2013, he published his findings on ancient megalithic structures in Turkey. He found evidence of advanced masonry dating back millions of years. His peers largely ignored him. They dismissed his work. Why? Because the official narrative simply cannot accommodate structures built by beings existing long before our current understanding of civilization. He saw the clear tool marks. He measured the precise cuts. You can see them too. The evidence was right there. Yet the consensus remained unchanged. It's easier to ignore a difficult truth than to dismantle an entire academic framework. Koltepin, like others before him, faced ridicule. His funding dried up. This is how the system protects itself. It silences the dissenting voices. And here's where it gets interesting. These aren't just isolated incidents of dismissal. This is a pattern, a deliberate suppression. How do you explain the Ica stones from Peru? Over 15,000 engraved stones depicting dinosaurs, advanced surgery, and even telescopes. Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquea, a local physician, collected them for decades. He saw the intricate details. He saw the impossible scenes. The scientific establishment declared them a hoax, without thorough investigation. The sheer volume of the collection, the consistency of the art style, these details were brushed aside. Think about the effort required to forge 15,000 intricate stones. For what purpose? What would motivate someone to create such a massive, elaborate deception? Cabrera dedicated his life to these stones. He lost his medical license because of his unwavering belief. His story is a testament to the personal price of challenging orthodoxy. He saw the carvings of people riding dinosaurs. He saw the anatomical precision. He believed what his eyes told him. But the official story, the one taught in schools, says humans and dinosaurs never coexisted. So, the stones must be fake. No further questions. What do you think happened? The official reports often focus on the confession of a local farmer, Basilio Ushuaia, who claimed to have carved some of the stones. But Ushuaia later recanted, stating he was pressured by authorities to confess. This detail, the forced confession, rarely makes it into the mainstream accounts. It's a convenient oversight. Because if the Ica stones are real, our understanding of history, of biology, of human intelligence is fundamentally flawed. It means advanced beings were here, observing, documenting, hundreds of millions of years ago. You might find this hard to believe, but the evidence is compelling. The intricate detail on the stones, the sheer number of them, the consistent depiction of impossible technologies. These are not random carvings. These are deliberate messages, and they are waiting for you to decipher them. What if we are not the first, or even the second, advanced civilization to grace this earth? The question these artifacts force us to confront is deeply unsettling. It challenges our sense of uniqueness, our place at the top of the evolutionary ladder. So, what happens to those who dare to study these anomalies? Often, their careers suffer. Their funding dries up. The pressure to conform is immense. It's easier to ignore the impossible artifact than to rewrite history. But the rocks do not lie. They hold secrets. And sometimes you just have to listen very carefully to hear their ancient whispers. The Coso artifact, the metal sphere, the cube, the Dorchester pot, the gold thread, the coin, the Ica stones. These are not anomalies. They are messages. Messages from a time before time, and they are waiting for you to decipher them. What if what they reveal changes everything? What if these are not just stones, but echoes of a forgotten past, calling out across unimaginable gulfs of time, reminding us that we are merely a chapter, not the entire story? To be just a chapter, not the entire story, is a disquieting thought. It suggests our civilization, with all its triumphs and technologies, is simply one verse in an epic poem, and we have no idea how it ends. The artifacts, from the Coso spark plug to the Ica stones, are not just curiosities, they are mirrors. And what they reflect back at you is a profound and unsettling question about our own permanence. Think about what that means. For centuries, we have looked to the stars for evidence of other intelligent life. We've built radio telescopes, like the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, listening for faint signals from distant galaxies. We've sent probes like Voyager 1, carrying our own golden records into the void. But what if we have been looking in the wrong direction? The official story says these ancient objects are misinterpretations, natural formations, hoaxes. But that story fails to account for the sheer persistence of the myth. The legends of Atlantis, of Mu, of Hyperborea. Every culture on Earth has a memory of a time before, a golden age of gods and heroes who fell from grace. What if these are not myths? What if they are distorted memories? The fragmented recollections of a species with amnesia. You see, the evidence is not just in the rock. It's woven into our oldest stories. The Great Flood, the flying chariots of the gods. These accounts, dismissed as fantasy, suddenly take on a new weight when you hold a 300-million-year-old metal sphere in your mind. The official science has an answer for this, too. It's called the Fermi paradox. If intelligent life is common, where is everybody? The silence from the stars is deafening. But maybe the paradox is flawed. Maybe the silence isn't empty. Maybe it's the sound of great civilizations that have come and gone. This leads to a darker thought. The Great Filter, a hypothetical barrier that all civilizations must face, a point at which they either ascend to a new level of existence or they extinguish themselves. Perhaps these artifacts are the tombstones, warnings left behind by those who did not make it through. But there is another possibility, a more hopeful one. What if the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence? What if the goal of a truly advanced civilization is not to build bigger cities or more powerful machines? What if the ultimate evolution is to disappear, to merge with the universe, leaving behind only whispers, faint echoes in stone? The question these artifacts force upon us is not about the past, it is about our future. They ask us to look at our own world, at our own trajectory. Are we listening to the echoes? Or are we destined to become another silent